Hi, welcome to my fall Know Me pattern sew along for ME2101. Today in this video, we're going to be filming view A. This pattern was inspired by my basketball background. If you didn't know, I played both collegiately and professionally overseas in Australia and had quite a long career before I dove into the fashion industry. So basketball was always my first love. Now sewing and fashion is my second. But when I was growing up, I always wanted a snap or tearaway skirt. Back in the early 2000s, when I first started playing basketball, tearaway pants were all the rage. We see some of that athleisure coming back into style this season, like the Adidas striped pants. And so I really wanted to pull on not only my basketball background, but what was going to be sort of in style or in season this fall. And hence, we got this athletic look with the crossover top and the tearaway skirt. Now, view A is the hoodie, and I will say in this photo, I was 25 weeks pregnant, and I am currently, while filming this, 40 weeks pregnant. So my daughter is here in this photo with me, but the hoodie is much longer when you don't have a pregnant body. Now, this isn't a maternity pattern. I just happened to be pregnant while I was in the process of designing and making it. The crisscross on the front was actually unintentional, but now is twofold because it's going to be a great breastfeeding top when I get to that stage here in just a couple days. But I just love the way that it crisscross flatters all body types. Again, this waistband is going to be probably hit a non-pregnant person a little bit lower, but again, I was 25 weeks pregnant in these photos, so it looks like a cropped hoodie. It is not, but you could totally make it cropped if you wanted to. It's intended to hit below the waist, but again, being pregnant, it was a little bit out of my control. As far as notions go, this does require quite a bit of elastic, 3/8 of an inch elastic, about 7 meters if I look correctly. But it's because with the waistband, both the waistband of the jacket and the skirt are both elasticated. Your wristbands are both elasticated. And so we're using that much elastic in those areas. You're also going to need 16 snaps, 8 for each side. Now the fun part that I can't wait to see people hack is the different colors they use or how short they make the skirt if they hack it into a shorter skirt. I have tons of ideas, but once I get back from maternity leave, then I'll play around with those ideas. But for now, the sew along includes the version of another maxi skirt, except this time, in these videos, you'll see that the main fabric that I use is a print. It's going to be leopard print. And then the two side panel contrasts are white and black because I want to be able to pair it all fall and winter along with going to my husband's basketball games and being able to wear his school shirt and my school shirt and just be able to wear it with a ton of different colors. Now, I did not make the hoodie the same color as the main fabric. In fact, I made the hoodie on the sew along black to match the big side panel. So there's tons of different ways that you can play with colors and patterns and all kinds of contrasts with this pattern. I can't wait to see how you guys do it. I look forward to seeing your creativity. Like I said, I have a couple hacks in mind, but those won't be out until I am back from maternity leave. So I can't wait to see what you do with this pattern. Have fun. Let's get started. The suggested fabrics for ME2101 include stretch knits such as bamboo knit, double knit, ITY, ponte, sweatshirt fleece, and terry knit. For this sew along, I will be using French terry on both the skirt and the sweatshirt. View A and View B both call for 3/8 inch elastic. View A calls for 5 3/4 yards, and View B calls for 3 7/8 yards of the elastic. View B also calls for 16 5/8 inch heavy duty snaps. Down here you will find a stretch guide. So what you will do is stretch your fabric, and this is the amount of stretch that you need to complete this fabric. You will also find body measurements up here for your suggested sizes and the yardage that you will need for each view. Remember that there's two contrasts for skirt B, and then both A and B call for interfacing, so make sure you have that. For view A, we need pattern piece 1, which is the front, and you need to cut 2. Pattern piece 2, the back, cut 1 on the fold. Pattern piece 3 is the hood, cut 2. Pattern piece 4 is the front facing. You need to cut 2 in your main fabric and 2 interfacing. Pattern piece 5 is our back facing, cut 1 on the fold, cut 1 interfacing as well. Pattern piece 6 are our sleeves, cut 2. Pattern piece 7 is our sleeve casing, cut 2. Pattern piece 8 is our waistband casing, cut 2. Pattern piece 9 is our drawstring, cut 2. Pattern piece 10 is the elastic guide for our sleeve wristbands. And pattern piece 11 is our elastic guide for the waistband for view A. After you've finished interfacing pattern pieces 4 and 5, we are going to take pattern piece number 2, which is the back, and our 2 pattern piece number 1s, which is the front, and we are going to attach these face to face at the shoulders. So you can see here, I'm going to take my shoulder and I'm going to attach matching up notches face to face. I'm going to go ahead and sew 5/8 to 1 inch, and then I'm going to match up my other side on the shoulder seams face to face, matching notches, pin, and sew 5/8 of an inch. So go ahead and sew up both of your shoulder seams and come back. Next, we're going to take pattern piece 3. You should have 2 of them for your hood. And we are going to go to this part down here, this little part, and you're going to press it up by rolling it twice. And then go ahead and press, and we're going to make a stitch line there. So it'll look something like this, where it gets rolled up to 5/8 of an inch. Once both edges have been rolled up and pressed, you're gonna go ahead and create just a edge stitch along this for a narrow hem. So we finished our narrow hem. Go ahead and clean finish your edges and do this to both sides of pattern piece number 3. Next, you're gonna lay those 2 pattern piece number 3s, your hood, face to face. And we are going to sew 5/8 of an inch all along the back of the hood. So we're going to stop right here and start right here, connecting our hood pieces, and then stopping right here before we move on to the next step. Okay, now that we've connected our back hood pieces together, we are going to go to the ironing board, and then you're going to press this open, this seam line open. Now, you can keep it that way and clean finish it however you want, but the instructions call for you to fold it in on itself and then stitch it down, edge stitch. So this will be happening on both sides, and so we'll put an edge stitch all the way down. Go ahead, again, this will be easier once it's pressed, and then you'll have 2 stitches. So I'm going to go ahead and do that technique, or you can just overlock and press it open if you want to fly through this quickly. I also apologize for all these little fuzzies. When I pre-washed this fabric, I washed it with another fabric and it didn't go well, but you're just going to have to bear with the little white fuzzies. So again, we're going to take this to the ironing machine, open it up, and then you will fold this under and fold this under to create this look, and then we will top stitch. So I'm going to go ahead and go to the iron board and then pin all of this and then get ready to top stitch to sew it down. All right, so I like to sew this one side at a time. You can see this is the side that I have rolled on top of each other and pinned down. This side I still have open, and I'll come back and do this side after I complete this side of sewing. So this is what it'll look like on the inside of the hood, and then this is what it'll look like on the outside of the hood. So you'll see those 2 top stitching lines all the way down your hood. So go ahead and press that again, and we'll move forward. All right, next we're gonna take our front hood, and we're gonna go ahead and fold at that. I like to put a notch here so that I have the proper 1 1/4 inches. And so we're gonna fold at 1 1/4 inches, and then also at the top, we're gonna fold in 1/4 inch to create the clean finish. And then we're gonna go ahead and edge stitch along this. all the way on the front hood. All right, so I've gone ahead and I've rolled it over that 1.25 inches, and then I've pinned down 1/4 inch to create that clean finish, and now I'm gonna go make a stitch line along this edge. As you can see, now we've created this casing for our drawstring to go ahead and slide on through to both sides. Next, we are going to take our bodice front and bodice back that are connected to the shoulder seams, and we're going to attach our hood matching notches. So you can see I have a notch over here and a notch over here, so I'm going to match it up with the notches on my hood. And then I'm going to pin all the way around. Now that it's pinned, we're going to go ahead and stitch 5/8 inch. Next, we're going to attach pattern piece 4 and pattern piece 5 at the shoulder seams. This is our facing, and then we are going to attach our facing to our main bodice. Next, we have taken our facing pieces and connected them to the main body. The hood is in the middle, so you are still going to, you can see here, here's my facing, here's my hood, and it's still connected to the bodice. So you're gonna connect all 3, and we're gonna sew at 5/8 inch all the way from one end to the other. Now that we've attached the facing to the body, we're gonna go ahead and put all of the seam allowance towards the facing, and we're gonna understitch right here so that it doesn't roll out onto our jacket. Of course, my phone did not capture the last video, but just to recap what the step that I just did. So we understitched on the side of the facing and put all of the seam allowance to the underfacing. And then once we finished the understitch, we came back and we did a 1/4 inch top stitch along the top of the entire bodice. And again, I pushed my hood this way so I can continue that 1/4 inch all the way around to the other side. So you can see here, the facing is now not only understitched, but it's top stitched, so it's set to stay. For the next step, we are going to create the crisscross. So you can see here, I've overlapped the crisscross, and we are going to overlap the 2 pattern pieces at the front. And so they do have notches. I've already gone ahead and pinned. They do have notches, so you're gonna match up the notches and then continue pinning, and then with the notching matches, and then continue pinning. And then we're gonna go ahead and just do a basting stitch right here to hold this all in place. Next, we're going to take our sleeves, which are pattern piece number 6, and we are going to attach it to the armhole at the shoulder seam and matching the notches. So you'll see we have notches, 2 for the back over here and 1 for the front. So we're gonna match notches on our bodice. So we're gonna go ahead and pin, and then we will stitch the sleeves onto the bodice. All right, again, I apologize for all the fluff. I tried to get it all off in the dryer when I was pre-washing this fabric, but I washed it with a fabric that was fluffy. So here we have our front sleeve. Well, this is our bodice, but this is the notch for the front sleeve, and these are the notches for the back sleeve. So face to face, I'm going to place that sleeve down and connect at the notches. So pinning together, and then matching notches, pinning on the other side. And then I'm gonna go ahead and pin the rest of the sleeve. And then once it's pinned, we're gonna sew 5/8 inch across on both sides of the bodice. Okay, now that we attach the sleeve to the bodice, we're gonna go ahead and attach the side seams and close up that sleeve. So we're gonna do a 5/8 of an inch all the way down and around to the side seam. So go ahead and do that to both sides and come back. Next, we are taking pattern piece 7, which is our 2 cuffs, or the casings that will become our cuffs. Now, we are going to connect them at the side seams, and on the pattern piece, you will see that there are dots. We want to make sure to mark these dots on our fabric so that we don't sew between this area. So we'll sew from here, 5/8 inch stop, and then sew from here, 5/8 inch stop, leaving this open so that we can insert elastic up here. So as you can see, I've marked here with some white colored pencil where I'm going to sew to and then leave this open and then close out. So what we're gonna do is take one of our casings, fold it in half face to face, and then we're gonna go ahead and stitch, again, using those guidelines. It's clear on this side. So I'm gonna sew here, stop, leave this open, backstitch, and finish. When you're finished, go ahead and press this open. You'll see here we have that hole to insert the elastic. It's hard to see on black fabric, I apologize for that. But you'll see we have that opening to insert our elastic. So what we're going to do is press this open, and then we are going to pin in half, wrong side to wrong side. And I like to pin at both my seam allowances to make sure they stay flat. And then we're just gonna pin all the way around so that this looks like a cuff. And then we need to draw in our stitching line so we can create our casings for the elastic. Once you fold it and pinned, now remember this opening is gonna be on the outside. I like to put it on the inside because this is gonna be the inside of my cuff right here, so it's gonna be hidden when I go to sew it up. So go ahead and flip it so that the casing opening is on the inside, because that's where we're gonna feed through the elastic. And then we're gonna take our pattern piece, and I've folded it in half, and then I'm just going to go around and mark my guide so that when I go to stitch, I have the stitch lines in place where they're supposed to be. And now I'm using black fabric, so it's harder, but I just go around, and yes, this is tedious work, but it allows me to keep my guidelines the same all the way around. And so about every 1/2 inch or 3/4 of an inch, I'm gonna mark the guidelines because I am not good at eyeballing this. Alternatively, you can still mark your guidelines, and then you could take a piece of elastic that is as thick as this band and insert it and then sew on these guidelines to create it. But for the sake of following the directions, this pattern piece calls for 1, 2, 3 elastics. So we'll be inserting 3 different elastics into this cuff. And so you could get a piece of elastic that's about 1 1/4 inches, or you could do the 3 elastics. I prefer the 3 elastics because right now I am officially 40 weeks pregnant, and so I don't know how my body is going to be after I have this baby. And so I'm gonna do the 3 elastics so that I can change the width if I need to. So I'm gonna make mine pretty loose, and then as I further venture along in postpartum, I will then make my cuff smaller. So as you can see, I've marked my guidelines for my casing around the entire cuff. I'm gonna go ahead and take this to the sewing machine and create those 2 stitch lines so that I have those guidelines in place. So when I'm putting in my elastic, it stays within the casing. We wanna make sure on the opening right here So here's the opening on the other side. I'm gonna sew a little bit over so that I have room to insert my elastic. So I'm not gonna sew right on top of this because I still wanna be able to insert my elastic. So as you can see, again, it's hard to tell on the black fabric, I apologize. We've created those 2 stitch lines that will act as casings, so we'll insert a piece of elastic at the top, at the middle, and here. But I want you to go ahead and repeat this entire process for the next cuff before we move on to the next step. All right, now that we have both cuffs finished, this process is very similar to our waistband casing. So if you want to go ahead and sew up your waistband casing right now, I know that's out of order per the directions, but it literally is the exact same steps, just on a larger scale. So you can go ahead and complete that now. I'm going to follow the order of directions. So now we're going to attach these to our sleeves. So let's go ahead and do that. So you can see here, our sleeve has a seam line and then it also has a notch. And so when we go to attach it, again, I'm gonna flip it so that it's face to face. So this is actually going to, the hole that we created is going to be on the outside, and I'm going to slip my sleeve through. So that's on the outside. And then I'm going to match up that seam allowance with the seam allowance of my cuff and pin. Let me open this up for all the thicknesses. So we're going to match the seam allowances up and pin. Again, it's right side to right side, so that when I flip this up, this will be this way. And then I'm going to match up the notches on this side. So here we go, matching up the notches. And then I'm gonna pin all the way around and then sew up at 5/8 inch seam allowance. All right, so once it's all pinned, you're gonna go ahead and repeat this process to the other cuff and stitch 5/8 inch seam allowance all the way around. All right, once you've connected this cuff to the sleeve, go ahead and repeat the process for your other cuff and sleeve. All right, now that we have finished our sleeve casings, for the next step, you're going to need 3 safety pins, doesn't matter the size, and 3 pieces of elastic that are fitted to your wrist. Now, again, I'm making mine a little bit longer because I am in my 40th week of pregnancy and I'm a bit puffy right now, but I figure that will go down in time. I also cut an additional 3 of the same size for my other wrist. So 6 total when you're cutting out the pieces of elastic for our casings. Now, I like to thread them all at the same time. That way the elastics aren't twisting and I can ensure that they're all going to be flat when I insert them. If you prefer to do one at a time, that's great. Alternatively, you could get a piece of elastic that is the size of all 3 of these, which would be about 1.25 inches to 1 inch. And then you could put the stitch lines on top of the elastic if you wanted to power through this step and make it really quick. Again, I like the 3 casings. It just kind of creates that vintage, I can't believe I just said vintage, but that early 2000s, sorry, that's my students rubbing off on me. I'm a high school teacher if you didn't know, but that early 2000s vibe with the 3 casings, that's the inspiration we're going for. So you can totally choose a different method for this step if you'd like, not even do the casings, get a big fat piece of elastic and put in the stitch lines on the elastic to create the casings. It's really up to you. I'm just following the pattern instructions. So again, for this step, we're going to insert into that opening that we left here on the cuff. So I like to start with the first one. And again, I'm just going to feed it through, ensuring that everything is flat. Now, when the elastic kind of gets to this point, I want to leave it out. So what I like to do is place a pin here to keep it in place. And then I'm not going to force this any further. I'm going to go ahead and insert my second piece of elastic because I want to keep this flat. Now again, you could finish and go all the way around and connect and sew if you'd like, but for me, this just ensures that none of them twist, and then I kind of all move all three at a time until we get to the end. So whatever method you prefer, but go ahead and thread in your elastics. Then we'll sew them and connect them, and then I'm going to leave this open for the sake of I'm still pregnant, and so in postpartum, I might be smaller, so I'm going to leave this little casing open, but you would just stitch it up with a hand needle to close everything up and then go ahead and finish your seam lines here. But again, I'm going to leave it open just for the unique circumstance that I'm in being pregnant, and I kind of want this to fit tighter once I've lost some of my baby weight. Once you've inserted your elastics, go ahead and try it on for sizing. And once you're happy with the sizing, you can go ahead and stitch these closed, and then go ahead and stitch that closed with a needle and thread. And then you will have your sleeve done, and you'll repeat this process to the other wristband sleeve. All right, so the waistband casing is exactly the same as the two casings for our wristbands. So I'm not gonna do the full step-by-step process just because we've already walked through it 2 times with the wristbands. So again, the first plan of action would be to mark, and of course it's on the side, but mark those 2 dots so that we leave that casing open. And you're gonna do that on one side, not both sides. So on the other side, you're gonna sew all the way down 5/8, just leaving one side open. And then you are going to mark your casing stitch lines and go ahead and put those stitch lines on. And then we're gonna attach the waistband to our bodice. And then you're going to fish in the 3 elastics. Again, for me, I'm going to leave this very stretchy because I don't know where my body's gonna land in a few weeks once I have my baby, actually a few days, but I don't know what my body's gonna look like in the coming weeks. So I'm going to do my elastic really loose, and that might deter you from actually doing this step because you're gonna be like, that doesn't look cute, but it's just because my waistbands are not gonna be tight. So again, make sure you can mark with something. I'm choosing to do a white colored pencil, but you could also mark with insoluble marker like we did for the skirt in view B. But again, this is the process that we've done now for our waistbands, or the waistband on the skirt, and then the 2 wristbands on the sleeves. So this is just another time of doing it. So at this point, you should have this step down. Again, I'm not gonna show it just for time's sake and making this video super long. If you need to go back and rewatch how we did the wristbands, this is just on a larger scale. All right, now that we've completed the same steps to our waistband, so again, we've put in the 2 stitch lines for the casing, we are now going to attach it to our bodice. I've connected the side seams here with the side seam of the bodice. So you can see the side seams are lined up. And then on this side, the side seams are lined up. So I'm gonna go ahead and pin all the way around, and then we will stitch 5/8 of an inch. Make sure you match up your notches here with the notches that match on your bodice. And then again, create 5/8 of an inch seam allowance all the way around, and then we can add our elastic. Okay, once the waistband is attached, again, we're gonna go through the side seams, so you can see my side seams right here. And then we're gonna feed the elastics through to create the gathering. And then we'll move on to the last piece, which is the drawstring. So go ahead and feed that through. I'm not gonna show it on video because I've already showed it 2 times on the wrist. So I think you've probably got it figured out over this point. All right, wrapping this project up, we are going to grab our 2 drawstring pieces, and on the notch ends, you're going to attach this face to face and then sew up 5/8 of an inch so that this becomes one big long piece of drawstring. And then we are going to fold the drawstring in half with our wrong sides together and press it. So I'll show you what that looks like. And then we are going to top stitch and then we will create little knots at the end, feed it through our hood, and our drawstring will be finished, and so will this jacket. All right, it's hard to see because my fabric is black, and I apologize for that, but I want it to match the black stripe that is on the skirt version of this dress, and so I apologize. But what I did was wrong sides together. We went to our ironing board and we created a crease, and now that we have that crease, we're gonna open it up, and we're gonna take and fold both sides to that crease, and then fold it on top of each other to create a clean finish. And then what we'll do here is stitch to create a clean finish, so both sides will be clean. So I'm gonna go ahead and pin that and then show you what that looks like. All right, now that I've pinned it all together, we're gonna go ahead and take it to the sewing machine and then create an edge stitch here, closing all this up. Then we will make 2 knots and we will add it to our sweater and be finished. Okay, now that it's all sewn, we're gonna go ahead and create a knot here. At the edge. So you can see we've just created a knot. And then you can go ahead and trim this up if you want to make it cleaner. I kind of like that it's rugged. And then again on this side, go ahead and create that knot. All right, and then we're gonna feed it through our hood. Again, I apologize for all of this. I washed it with a baby blanket and it didn't come out good in the dryer. So what are we gonna do to thread this through? Well, I attached a safety pin, and then we're going to take it through the opening that we created way back a million steps ago. And we're just gonna thread it through the entire hood until it comes out. On the other side, the knot is being a little bit difficult for me, but once we get it through, it'll be easy push. There we go. And you're just gonna thread it all the way through. All right, so as you can see, we've pulled it through. We've made the strings equal size. It is now all in the casing, so you can make it as long as you want or as short as you want. They come out of the casing right here and right here, and they will hang long. So now that we've completed that step, we are finished. All right, that concludes our sew along. I cannot wait to see how you style it and take photos or reels. Please tag me at Miss Alisha Grace on Instagram or TikTok. I'd love to see what you come up with. Again, use the hashtag ME2101. And until next time.